Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. So as you can see, today we are in a different location, and that is because of a very simple reason, which is, if we scoot over here, oh look at him, look at him! He's really angry with me right now because I had been spending a lot of time trying to like adjust my tripod in here, like moving things around, because this is the room in my sister's house with the best light. So yes, long story short, I am cat sitting for my sister. She has two very, very cute cats, and whilst she's out of the house, I am looking after them. Yay! I'm kind of treating it like a holiday house thing because this is the week that me and my family would have been going on holiday. We were meant to be going to the Canary Islands. However, unfortunately, they were on the list of places where you would have to quarantine for 2 weeks afterwards, and we couldn't really do that. So we've had to stay home, which is very, very sad, but you know, necessary. Funnily enough, like about a day after we would have gone to the Canary Islands, they took them off the list of places to quarantine at. So typical. COVID just ruining everyone's plans all the time. But no, that means for the next few days I am going to be not in my usual location and not with my usual bookcases behind me. So I've been just trying to work out like what kind of videos I can film in the next few days. Like I say, this is the room that has the best light, and this is the spot that gets the best light. My sister's house is very nice and cozy, and it feels like very lovely and autumnal and kind of hygge, but for filming purposes, it's not the brightest house in the world. So hopefully this is okay. We'll see how we go. But I just thought as a video to kind of ease myself in to filming here, I would just do the 20 bookish questions tag. So as the title suggests, that is 20 questions that are all about books that you should be able to kind of quick fire give the answers to. We'll see. I ramble a lot, don't I? So on to the questions. Question number 1 is, how many books is too many books in a book series? I mean, I don't personally have very strong preferences when it comes to book series and how many books is too many. I mean, my two favourite fantasy book series both have 7 books or are intending to have 7 books, but I wouldn't say that that is an ideal amount for every single series. I know a lot of people who've done this tag have said that their ideal is 3 books, and that if it goes to 4, that should only happen if there is just so much world building and so much plot that you just physically cannot keep it to 3 books. But personally, I tend to take a lot of issue with trilogies because I think there are a lot of book series that just do not need to be trilogies, where often the first book will be like a pretty good standalone, pretty strong, and then the second book is just a bit of filler, and then book 3 is where everything kind of resolves. And I just feel like you could have really condensed book 2 and book 3. It didn't need to be a trilogy just because everybody else is doing a trilogy. So I don't really feel like I have an answer to this. I feel like a real skill for an author is to be able to quickly and concisely get their point across. So if you can get that in as few books as possible, then that's great. But if you have so much world, or it is actually necessary for you to have multiple books, then do it. I mean, some of the contemporary series that I used to read, like The Princess Diaries and the Shopaholic series, they were all like 9 or 10 books long, and I enjoyed every minute of them. I think if you as an author can find a way to really sustain the series without it getting like redundant, then do what you want, go for your life. Hey mate! You moved positions. Aw, sleepy boy. Question number 2 is, how do you feel about cliffhangers? Not great. This is the other reason that I often take issue with trilogies, is because usually book 2 will end on a cliffhanger. Like I say, book 1 will often be like a pretty complete story in itself where there is room to grow, but you didn't necessarily need to have a follow-up. Book 2, on the other hand, is basically just a precursor to book 3, and it will usually end on a cliffhanger. And I don't know how much I like that. I feel like a lot of cliffhangers are just a little bit cheap. And I especially do not like cliffhangers if the author in question takes years to actually follow up with the next book. Question number 3 is hardcover or paperback. So whilst I do appreciate a beautiful hardback, you know, I have videos all about the beautiful book design that goes into hardbacks, I generally will always prefer a paperback for portability, for usability, like they're much easier to hold, and also for storage. It's just so much easier to store paperbacks and to pile them up than it is to do with hardbacks, which are always different sizes and dimensions, and I don't like that. Question number 4 is favourite book, and that is to be decided. I think I've said before that I really, really want to reread all of my old favourites and then maybe do like a list where I go through what I think is my favourite book of all time. Because at the moment I just don't know. For a very long time, as I've said, I thought The Book Thief was my favourite book of all time. I've reread that since, and whilst I still think that would feature on our list of my favourite books of all time, I don't know if it's the favourite. I've been starting to think that maybe Pride and Prejudice might be my favourite, but I don't know. Question number 5 is least favourite book. Oh, there are a few contenders contenders for this. There's part of me that really wants to do a video all about my least favourite books, but then I feel like not only would that be like really annoying to watch somebody just ranting about their least favourite books, I feel like it would also be kind of draining to film. I don't know if I could sustain that kind of negative energy for an entire video. Though to be fair, I can rant for a while, so maybe I'm lying. But at the moment, strong contenders there would be The Road by Cormac McCarthy, Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli, and This Is What We Do by Tom Hanson. Did not like any of those books. Question number 6 is love triangles, yes or no? And generally for me, a rule of thumb is no, because I feel like we've gotten to a point where love triangles are just everywhere and it just really cheapens the story, but you can do love triangles really, really well. I think you can't have a love triangle for the sake of drama. It actually has to point to something within that main person, within the love triangle's character and like their two sides of their personality. I think if you do that really well, then it's good. But if it's just for drama and to bulk out the story, then nah. Question number 7 is the most recent book that you couldn't finish. And for me, that was Bridge of Clay by Marcus Zuzak. I picked that up end of last year and I was really, really keen to read it because I'd heard good things and also because it is by the author of one of my favourite books. So I was really looking forward to it, but unfortunately I just could not get into it at all. The characters just seemed really awful and I didn't want to spend time with them, and it was just kind of boring. And I heard other people saying, no, press on with it, it gets better, but I don't know, I have life to live. I do think at some level I have to be grabbed pretty quickly by a book in order for me to want to keep going, and it just was not doing it for me. Question number 8 is a book that you're currently reading, and that is right here. It is The Watchmaker Filigree Street by Natasha Pulley. Question number 9 is the last book that you recommended to someone, and I can't remember when it was that I last personally recommended a book to somebody, but I guess on Instagram I posted about Elizabeth Gaskell and the 2 books that I read from her this month, which was North and South and Wives and Daughters, so I suppose they were a book recommendation that I gave. Question number 10 is the oldest book that you've read by publication date, and I think for that my answer to that is The Iliad by Homer, the classic retelling of the Trojan War, or at least the last few weeks of the last year of the Trojan War. And then question number 11, following on from that, is the newest book that you've read by publication date, and I think for that it would be Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, which I talked about in my October Part 1 wrap-up. Question number 12 is favourite author, and I have the hardest time trying to pin down who my favourite author is. I always see people talking about like their favourite authors or authors who they think that they could really, really get on with. And to be honest with you, I don't think I am that loyal to authors. I am very much somebody who reads based on a premise that I really, really like. And sometimes if I really like one book from an author, I might be tempted to pick up the next thing that they write. But number 1, often I end up being disappointed because, you know, whatever book they've come out with is not quite as strong, to me at least, as the original book that I read. Or I'm just generally not interested in anything else by the author. I'm just not somebody who reads a lot by individual authors, which is something that I am trying to get better at. As a teenager, I was fairly loyal to certain authors, you know, like I read a lot of Jacqueline Wilson, and as a teenager I read a lot of Sophie Kinsella. But I think not only do they tend to write in the same genre, they tend to write the same kinds of characters, especially Sophie Kinsella. Like her main character is pretty much the same character in every single story, and I love it. Whereas, like I say, I wanted to read other books by Marcus Zuzak, and neither I Am the Messenger or Bridge of Clay really did anything for me, at least nowhere near as much as The Book Thief did. Another book that I really, really loved was When I Hit You by Mina Kandasamy, and I thought, oh my god, new favourite author. And then I picked up one of her more recent books, which I think is Exquisite Cadavers, and I was just like, nah. Recently, I would say that maybe Elizabeth Gaskell could creep up there and become one of my new favourite authors, because I did like the 2 books that I've read from her, but you know, she has a lot more work that I haven't gotten to yet. So I don't know, I think the closest I could come to definitively saying, yes, this is one of my favourite authors of all time, because I've read most of their work and enjoyed pretty much all of it, is maybe Jane Austen, which I feel like is quite a stereotypical answer for this, but you know, I have read her 6 main novels and I've at least liked all of them. Like, I don't love Sense and Sensibility, but it wasn't like a dislike. I love Pride and Prejudice, I love Emma, I love Northanger Abbey, and I really, really appreciate, really like Persuasion, Mansfield Park, and I can be okay with Sense and Sensibility. And I do want to reread Sense and Sensibility because I feel like I will get on with it a lot more now. So I'm going to go with Jane Austen for this. But another one that is to be decided. Question number 13 is buying books or borrowing books. And as much as I wish that I did borrow books a lot more, it would be certainly a lot better for my bank account if I borrowed books, especially from the library. I do have a tendency towards buying books, especially in charity shops. And because I do very much have this compunction where I want to own as many of the books that I've read as possible, that necessitates buying books. I was going to be on track for using my library a lot more and kind of like using my library to pick out a lot of books that I've been kind of interested in, reading a bit of it and then deciding from there whether or not I wanted to continue reading it. However, then COVID happened and lockdown happened and I've not been able to put that into practice, which is a real shame because I also feel like using your library in that way also allows you to be a little bit more experimental with the books that you read. I feel like there are a lot of books that I'm kind of intrigued by but I wouldn't ever buy because I'm just like, I don't know for sure if I would like that. So at some point I do want to start borrowing books a lot more, being in a routine where I borrow a bunch of books that I'm kind of interested in, reading as much as I like from them and then feeling free to pass them back to the library if I don't like them, or well, I have to pass them all back eventually, but what I mean is I would eventually end up buying whatever books that I really, really loved, and then just being free to forget about the books that I didn't like, if that makes sense. But at the moment, I'm definitely a buyer. Question number 14 is a book you dislike that everyone else seems to love, and I think for me that has to be Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I know I did mention this in my Idiom Delirium book tag, but that was from a little while ago, and I haven't ranted about it since. As I said in that video, I am sure that Dolly Alderton is great, and I've actually listened to her podcast and interview podcast with her, and she seems absolutely fantastic, but I hated Everything I Know About Love. I just found it so indulgent, and I think it's maybe because like her 20s experience and her university experience is not mine at all. It's never been something I've been interested in, but it's all like that, like partying and being reckless and drinking a lot and doing drugs, and I'm just like, nah. Her just generally being really irresponsible, and I feel like the nana who's like, don't do it. One instance in particular that I know I talked about then was the fact that she was absolutely broke, like she had hit her overdraft, but then still got really, really drunk and decided to travel from London to Oxford and made her friend who she just randomly stopped at pay for her taxi ride there and back. And it was kind of presented in a, oh, look how crazy, look how wild my 20s are, and I'm like, your friends must be saints because you are a horrible person if you did that to someone. And I didn't like it. And I'm like, you know, you are free to do whatever you want to yourself, but when you bring your so-called friends into this, treat your friends like they are friends and not just people who are there to bail you out when you do something stupid. Anyway. Question number 15 is bookmarks or dog ears. So for me, it is generally bookmarking to gauge where I am in a book, though I do like to dog ear for particular pages, particular poems, if it's a poetry collection that I really thought were spectacular and that I wanted to go back and reference. Question number 16 is a book that you can always reread. At the moment for me that has been Pride and Prejudice, though I have to say the book that I have probably reread the most and re-listened to on audiobook the most is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, particularly the audiobook narrated by Stephen Fry. That one has had a lot of checkouts from my library over the course of my life. Question number 17 is can you read while hearing music? Generally I prefer not to have stuff on in the background, but I don't know. Sometimes I can have the TV on if it's not something that I'm watching and it's on kind of quiet. I can do instrumental music, but any music that I love, no, it'll be too distracting for me. Sometimes I can do film scores and soundtracks, but then if I know the film really, really well, then I'll just start quoting the film scenes in my head and trying to match the script verbatim with the point in the music, and yeah, that's what I like to do. Question number 18 is one POV or multiple POVs? POVs, of course, being point of view. I think generally I prefer one point of view because I like being within one character's mind for a lot of a book. But then depending on the world, you might need to have multiple point of views to really open it up, and just one would not do. But then with multiple POVs, you sometimes run the risk of one point of view not being quite as entertaining or engaging as others. I know for a lot of people that's something that really turns them off A Song of Ice and Fire, is that you might love, for example, like Daenerys or Arya, but then Bran, not so fun. Sorry, Bran. Question number 19 is, do you read a book in one sitting or over multiple days? I would always prefer to read a book in one sitting, but how often that happens? Not very frequently. I prefer to try and read books in as few sittings as humanly possible. Like, if it's taking me quite a few days to get into a book, even if I'm really, really loving it, I'm like, there must be something wrong here. Why am I not like completely immersed in a book? And I think honestly, the main reason that it takes me multiple days to read a book is because my concentration level is so bad. Because I'm a millennial Gen Z cusper and our attention spans are non-existent. For example, like right now I'm reading Watchmaker of Filigree Street, and I have been reading this like on and off over the course of the week, and whilst I'm reading it I'm really enjoying it, but then I'm reading like a page and then going down a rabbit hole with that one page, so it's taking me a lot longer. So I've read, what, like 84 pages? I'm not even 100 pages through. Usually the first 100 pages for me takes forever, and once I'm past 100 pages I really race through a book. I don't know what happens there, but I'm sure once I get past there we'll be fine. So those are all of the questions in the 20 Bookish Questions book tag. I hope you've enjoyed it. I was going to say I hope you've enjoyed the new location, but it's not the most beautiful picturesque, you know, just lovely radiator in the background and my dressing gown. Woo! Let's see if I can get Henry to look cute. Are you snoozing? Look at him. I might maybe be able to get some more close-up shots of the cats and that'll be cute, won't it? But I'll leave you there for now. Do let me know your answers to any of these questions in the comment section. I hope you are having a wonderful, wonderful day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.